Welcome to the new Cyber Frontier, bringing you the latest news and initiatives that focus on the development of cybersecurity economics. You don't have to be a computer or cybersecurity expert to get plugged in. Your host brings it straightforward, asks the tough questions, and brings the cyber world to a level of understanding for everyone. You can find us on the web at www.newcyberfrontier.com. Now join our host as he introduces the topic for today's new Cyber Frontier.
Hello, everybody. This is New Cyber Frontier. I'm your host, Tim Montgomery. We've got a crazy show today, right, Steve?
It's going to be amazing.
All right. So today we got Steve Ginti, and we'll let him introduce himself there and tell us a little bit about his background. And then we'll get right into some of these questions. I'm anxious to hear about what you've got software-wise, what it impacts, and just something about Microsoft. So we'll see there. So go ahead, Steve.
All right. Thanks for having me on. As you said, I'm Steve Ginti. I work on our threat intelligence strategy team here at RiskIQ. And the goal is to really help organizations understand their risk profile, what's attached to the internet, how can actors leverage those assets or vulnerabilities in that internet-connected infrastructure, and how do they make the best decisions to defend themselves in what is a very dynamic threat environment and vulnerability environment now. So background-wise, I started off in the industry about 15 years ago. I was an analyst focusing on investigating threats and bringing context to incidents for organizations kind of across the spectrum. I've worked as a government contractor. I've worked for some defense contractors, worked at private intel groups. I've started my own company. And so all over the board, and super excited to kind of talk to you today and see if I can provide some interesting stories to your audience.
Sweet. Yeah, I mean, we're glad to have you in. So your Risk IQ, I've had some background in understanding Risk IQ and the threat modeling concept that it's bringing. So it's very interesting, and I think it's a need for the industry, and I think cybersecurity in its community, there's some gaps in there, and I think it's helping to fill those gaps as well. So so this concept of using threat analysis, I guess it's solely proprietary to the internet connection, if you will. That's more or less where you guys prioritize the whole vectors of the nature of things. Nothing physical, like not being able to break into your the complexity of cybersecurity. There's so many layers to how to protect something that it kind of gets out there. So you gotta focus down on things, right? So I mean, tell us a little bit about the concept of that.
So we take kind of what we'd like to call an outside-in view of organizations. So most organizations, they've been doing vulnerability management, they've been doing asset inventory, they've been taking the appropriate steps to understand patch management cycles. But where we kind of see this rapid, acceleration and transformation of organizations from a traditional kind of perimeter defense, and I own all my assets, and and I can put a firewall around them and defend them. We're seeing a much larger transformation of organizations into hybrid environments, into cloud environments, and a lot more things now connected to the internet. You have OT and IoT devices, and so
that's blowing up, right?
So much to manage, and hard for those traditional programs to keep up. So what we try to do is scan the internet on a daily basis and start to attribute that infrastructure to organizations, so we can help them discover what they have connected to the internet. We can help them start to manage that, and we can help them understand the risks of those different assets that are on the internet, and maybe to your point, where to prioritize your response and your capabilities as the threat environment changes.
Yeah, no doubt. The threat environment is constantly changing. Zero-day attacks are always evolving. You name it. Sounds like we're always being surprised every corner we take. And the massive trend of business, just the COVID itself over the last 2 years have actually pushed more of that onto support from having internet connections from every facet, every residence, every COVID, and every little nick and cranny, and you think
about
like you got to have it everywhere now. So
all the devices that that were stood up in support of remote work. So you have a lot of IT infrastructure that was stood up quickly. If you look at at organizations that we assist, they were all planning on this kind of move to the cloud. And then COVID happened, and that accelerated plans that were 5+ years long into 3 to 6 month time frame.
And
so it really it really pushed people to be a lot more dynamic, and in doing so, there are obviously maybe misconfigurations or equipment deployed that isn't appropriately patched or isn't inventoried and managed appropriately, and therefore there are new avenues of attack for threat actors.
It always seems like there's new vectors out there, and a constant reiteration of the older versions. I know hackers are not going to just because it's old, let's just don't worry about that one. We're not going to pursue that attack. It doesn't matter. So it's any edge they can get in on, and they'll and these days the probability of hacking is way more imminent than what there was 10 years ago.
And
this is a big business now about hacking. So I mean, now more than ever,
there's a lot of money.
Something so that we need that threat modeling faster, more relevant, more effective now than ever. So I can understand those factors behind that. So Steve, we're gonna take a little break here, and we'll be right back as we hear from our sponsors.
Blockframe Technology offers next-generation blockchain managed trust and security. Unique non-fungible tokens are used to secure software bills of materials to provide data quality and security for every transaction in your supply chain. Deploy advanced peer-to-peer product security, scale zero trust capability to millions of IoT devices, allow vendor tracking and accountability, and rapidly reset from compromise. Unchangeable, time-sequenced blockchain data provides next-generation security using machine learning trust algorithms and audit analytics. Start securing your supply chain today by contacting Blockframe at www.blockframetech.com.
Welcome back to the New Cyber Frontier. I'm your host, Tim Montgomery, and we were talking with Steve here. He's an analyst. Are you a director? Or are you?
I'm currently focused on our strategy efforts.
We're
working with our Intel teams and our customers to really help them.
So you're really in the weeds there, right? So, and you were talking about how the risk IQ, and we were talking about the depth of hacking and what kind of in today's modern world, right? So the concept is just the need for such a thing, and the concept of threat modeling to do something more efficiently, more active in a more persuasive manner with less dollars, if you will, less FTEs, less people, more effectiveness, things like that. So the concept is certainly out there in businesses, and I know if you own a business out there, people are always looking for a better way to do things. So this is one of those effective means to kind of see something, be able to do it, and not have to have the extensive knowledge all the time. And being able to get that support, right?
Yeah, so we're really trying to leverage our expertise and the fact that we focus on this on a daily basis to be a force multiplier to organizations.
Yeah,
you mentioned everything is if you look at 2021, we've seen over 60 0 days caught in the wild so far. We still have 25 days left in the year. So we'll see what happens.
Still a lot of time, right?
But that totally eclipses 2020, where I think it was sub 40. And so we're seeing a significant increase in things that organizations have to prioritize, even, right? So how do you keep up with that? As some of our customers are large and they have big teams, and so they have the capability to keep up with that. But how do smaller teams do that? We're really trying to provide that Intel overlay to those organizations and their infrastructure to say, these are the pain points. If you're worried about ransomware, we know these actors use these avenues of attack, and this is an area you should focus on. Or here are the latest and greatest vulnerabilities that actors are targeting. Where is it in your environment? We can start to point you in the right direction.
Yeah. So I mean, like with small businesses, they don't have the like you said, the force multiplier. They don't have the force. Not like you would say on a DoD contract where, a Lockheed Martin or a Jacobs or Northrop Grumman would come in with a series of 400 individuals, and 100 of those would be all the cyber people, and we've got this massive CERT team. that's playing into the the big giant grid of the DoD. But that, I think those are things that actually are coming where there's individuals like you and I who have come out of that, and we have the knowledge, and so we're like your company is bringing up that ability to give that small productive effective component back to the little guy, I guess you could say. The small business components are being able to plus up, which makes
Yep.
them more competitive, also protecting them too. So I can see where this is such a good way of allowing individuals to try to, like you said, the gap that it would close, especially if you didn't have the forces to do such a thing. Um,
Yeah, and we saw that with the exchange vulnerability. You had organizations that didn't know where their exchange server was, didn't know that it wasn't hadn't been patched in years.
yeah, yeah. There's
Hadn't
just
really been
certain
paying attention, and being able to pinpoint where it was. We were sending emails to ISPs and others saying, hey, these are places you have to focus. It's not a lack of wanting to do the right thing. It's sometimes a lack of visibility, right? You
Mhm.
don't know what you don't know, and
Right.
therefore, if you're one or two security people, how
Yeah.
do you prioritize it? Really, we've made the move from, obviously our main focus for a while was global 2,000 organizations with larger teams, and we've slowly started to bring a product to market that helps kind of the mid tier segment in our Illuminate platform, where we're kind of telling you where the bad things are that you should focus on, and
Yeah.
so that you don't have to manage the entire attack surface. You can manage the most important pieces of your attack surface and prioritize them.
Yeah, that's certainly something I think would interest the multitude of individuals, especially not the budgets, things like that will that you're going to have to be able to put forth efforts towards safeguarding, especially on the internet. So, and then the
Yep.
focus of the internet, the connections, the devices, like we said, were spot on to the concept of majority of people. If they're going to do business, they got to be on the internet. They've got to be able to do business on the internet. So I mean, that's
Yes,
the best way.
it's a primary avenue to most of your customers nowadays. So it's not it's a need to have,
Yeah.
and therefore you're seeing a lot more focus on cybersecurity. You're also seeing a lot more focus on actors leveraging vulnerabilities inside of organizations, because it
Yeah.
is now more of a need to have than a nice to have, right?
Yeah. So this concept of you said that you were talking about Microsoft. Can you tell me a little bit what's going on there? So
Uh, so yeah, Risk IQ, as of August of this year, had an agreement to be acquired by Microsoft, which was fully closed out in September, and so we are now a subsidiary of Microsoft, and we're excited. We're excited for what the future holds, and to bring this kind of attack surface capability to a broader market. I think you keyed on this a few minutes ago. Is there's a lot of organizations that don't have the people or the capability to defend their environment
right.
as they would like, and therefore, as specialists in this area, our focus is how do we take that capability and the reach of Microsoft, and allow more organizations to be effective using our technology. And so that's really the excitement from my side, is how do we expand this capability and the reach of it, so that we can make a broader swath of the market more secure. And
Okay.
so
So I mean, I'm assuming that Azure is going to be the primary target for such projects to integrate such things into such modeling
we're
and that
yep.
source. So cloud is, I mean, it's basically what by 2025 they say what 50% of everyone's data will actually be in a cloud somewhere, which we all know the cloud is just someone else's computer, right? So,
Exactly.
so
Yeah, it's just there'll be certainly a close tie in there. We're actively working out how that comes together now. So we've only been officially a part of the family for about 3 months, so
yeah,
everybody's just getting their bearings.
I got you.
But we're excited about finding out how we can integrate, and our goal is to have something available in the larger Microsoft ecosystem by July of next year. But we currently have a full integration with their Azure Sentinel product that existed even before the acquisition.
Yeah,
So a lot of joint customers and current customers can already get that that uplift. So we're very excited about the opportunities ahead.
So it sounds like Microsoft will take what you got and expand on it, because I know that integration between their products and other products are going to be a necessity, especially with the type of customer sets that usually have a hybrid of different cloud components anyway. So I know that's necessary means to actually be able to work and be able to be effective with the piece of application that you're using, especially in the cloud services. So,
Correct, and the visibility piece is really, is really the piece that helps a lot, right? We can, we have global visibility of things connected to the internet. If we don't have visibility on them, we can deploy signatures to detect those devices in short order, or get some telemetry on them, and therefore we can help a broader swath of customers really understand new vulnerability comes out, new avenue of attack.
yeah.
Where is it? How prevalent is it on the internet as a whole? What industries may it be targeting? So you can get that better context about how to respond. Not every vulnerability is going to be impactful to every organization. So we're hoping to help guide organizations so that they can spend their resources wisely.
Yeah, where do you see the biggest vectors for when you do threat modeling, especially with this type of application? I mean, you're talking consistently about devices that are connected to the internet, but I mean, do you guys have a robust mechanism like the wireless portion, or do you get more into something as your connections go, and what kind of threat vectors? Where do you see the biggest premise here?
It's a little bit all over the place. But, primarily in the last year, a lot of VPN devices and remote legacy remote access devices have been a key avenue of attack.
Yeah,
This year,
was big.
Exchange and mail servers, was an issue. And we're also seeing, as people move to the cloud, misconfigurations and deployments that can cause issues. So
Yeah,
those are kind of the two primary areas. I think if I'm looking at the future, we see a lot of IoT devices being deployed and
yeah,
used inside of organizations, internet connected printers, cameras, you name it. And those are being, we're seeing those consistently being rounded up in botnets for DDoS attacks, different things.
yeah.
And so there's, the attack surface just keeps seeming to expand.
Yeah, the censorship and some of the things in the some of the companies I've seen in the past about the electronic devices, especially for healthcare, has exploded. I
Yeah.
think healthcare in itself has gone mobile, and just the devices that have to be interconnected in order to provide that type of care on a consistent basis with the right telemetry, like the right configurations, the right components that will feed that telemetry back to the medical industries, so that they create the right answers for their patient care. So certainly,
It's,
certainly,
it's
and yeah, the Bluetooth, the wireless concept, I mean, just we were talking about a domain. There's a couple of concepts about how the wireless now is starting to look at how the thresholds of wireless outside versus an interior part of components. So if I was sitting in a building, if you had a building of three and you had a threat vector of the concept of what goes over your wireless, or how another wireless can penetrate into your wireless, there was all kinds of these different concepts about how threat modeling could be, what vectors the threat modeling could have. So
Yeah, and you see,
very,
and we haven't even really gotten into kind of 5G and kind of next generation in cellular technology, and therefore
yeah,
the ability to connect more things, should grow in the future, and therefore again, what wasn't maybe planned for from a security model in some of these IoT devices, or even bringing manufacturing online, we're going to just see kind of expanded attack surface.
and I mean, as far as Microsoft finding out, the concept behind the bigger footprint and the analogy. Yeah, I mean, in your company, do you see what's the? I guess there's a true benefit to, besides the concept of global. Other benefits might improve the ability to develop something, the integration. I'm assuming, and those concepts will come along as long as you guys develop this interrelationship. So
Exactly. We have kind of, as Risk IQ, planted our flag in the external visibility of an organization as it's connected to the internet. Microsoft obviously has Defender and endpoint telemetry and
yeah,
things that our data can complement to allow organizations to make better decisions. And so we're really focused on bringing their internal visibility for an organization or a customer and pairing that with our external visibility to give organizations kind of a 360-degree view of what of what the threat is.
So I mean, and the other, I guess, the impact behind cybersecurity into other industries. Do you see any major concerns there as far as future advancements in the way threat modeling is going to inevitably change? Or, I mean, in the concepts that you have now, do you see, I mean, the methods they've got? So simple factors are you analyze by connecting components together, look at the risk factors that are possible, and then you go down those avenues. I mean, do you see anything challenging wise in the future, concerns that you would have that would trend future efforts to change? And what are those changes?
Yeah, I think the dynamic nature of attack surfaces is going to be something that's interesting, right? We're moving things to the cloud, and therefore, those are not static assets all the time.
Yeah.
Those can be spun up and spun down, based on a specific workload or need.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think that that's something that we are constantly thinking of, and clearly an area where Microsoft is thinking, obviously with Azure, but their multi-cloud push to have visibility and help organizations manage that. And so, bringing the two kind of capabilities together is an area where Microsoft brings a lot of value to our visibility in the cloud realm. And so I think that dynamic nature of assets as we transition more to the cloud environment will be something that all organizations have to struggle with, and that cybersecurity will have to adapt to. Right, you'll have something that exists for a finite amount of time, and that is then destroyed. How do you deal with artifacts? For incident response. How do you understand what's taking place on something when you only identified the breach, days, weeks, months after,
hours.
And so I think we're currently seeing that trend, and organizations are starting to respond to it, and it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, you're right. I think we're in for a dynamic change here soon. The way the threat vectors and the just technology picking up and accelerating at a certain point. So, and certainly the amount of threat actors that we seem to be imposing, especially on a nation state like the United States. So, I know every day it's a constant role of trying to prevent or detect or use what you have as dialogue to figure out where it's coming from and what exactly are we going to do to react to this.
I mean, the good thing is there's a lot of information, a lot more conversations about these types of attacks, both crime and espionage related, in the public realm nowadays, and so organizations have more information available to them.
Yeah.
I think the thing that we've seen over 2020 and 2021 that is interesting is the time compression around new vulnerabilities. So if you look at, I think it was in late August, early September, Atlassian announced a remote code execution vulnerability in their Confluence product. And if you timeline, release of announcement through active exploitation, it was, patch was released, and I think it was a 7-day window between patch being released and someone reverse engineering it, POC code being available, and ransomware actors using it at that kind of 7-day mark.
Yeah.
And that is new for a lot of organizations, I think. Whereas you would expect more advanced actors to use those vulnerabilities to target organizations. You're now seeing the ransomware groups get in the game very quickly.
Yeah.
And so that type of prioritization and understanding of that time compression is key for organizations to react appropriately.
Yeah, and I think you're right. There's more cooperation among different groups now. It's I know in the past, like Target, that company, kind of getting their hands slapped and breach idea. No one wants to show that they had a breach, but these days I think they're using that information internally to more cooperative measure among groups and businesses to really transpose that into an answer for people, especially when we need to react faster. And that just didn't seem to be, there was no uptake on it. So
yeah, and I think you're seeing, the Biden administration and some of the executive orders that have been pushed out that are pushing CISA and the private sector to collaborate more closely and kind of position government organizations to have a better patch cycle for critical vulnerabilities. All of that is kind of helping, and all of that kind of transparency is helping, I think, the broader market understand the implications of a lot of these attacks. But also kind of accelerating collaboration.
Yeah, and do you see the collaboration getting better? I mean, I think the collaboration is actually, from my perspective, being from the DoD and contracting world to being a federal government employee, I think I start to see the trends of companies being able to pick up and target and be able to transverse with a fluid motion. So I think the groups are starting to understand their parts, and eventually, I mean, do you see that perspective?
Yeah, I think the coordination and kind of the leadership that we've seen from CISA itself has really helped push that public-private partnership. And there's a lot of trust in that organization, and so larger groups, RiskIQ, Microsoft, others, are collaborating with the government to ensure visibility on vulnerabilities and threat actors, et cetera. And so I do think it's getting better. It's hard to gauge because it does seem like the tempo of attack is or attacks are much greater now. But you're balancing, is it just we're talking about it more? I think there's a bit of that to it, right? There's a little more, as you pointed out, people discussing and disclosing. And also, the attacks are getting a little more brazen, and so you're seeing a little more government response, specifically if you look around ransomware and Colonial Pipeline and some of these other ones.
Yeah, is that, I mean, how much the impact to the your risk IQ's concept to the threat modeling? I'm sure the analysis becomes, you get greater resources to validate from, which means turnaround time is quicker when you start talking about how to prevent something. So,
I mean, from my perspective, the consistent dialogue, whether it's privately amongst researchers and organizations, or publicly with the government sector and other private sector organizations, is helpful, right? I have a purview as RiskIQ into what's taking place, but I don't have all the information, so I can leverage additional information about threat actors and vulnerabilities and groups that are leveraging those to better inform my customers and to better help them make those risk decisions. So. I think more information in this regard from a community perspective can be helpful because I can add on to the information that another group puts out. Whether it's internal to RiskIQ or Microsoft, or it's FireEye and Mandiant or whoever it may be. We can all add to the conversation and kind of give our point of view that could help organizations.
Yeah, and it sounds like you guys are interwoven as much as we are into all the other. Beneficial, the information that comes out from those groups, basically. So, and we keep eyes on a lot of things. So, I actually work for a component back on the backside of the TSA to support their systems. So we're not necessarily the CISA, but we are part of Homeland Defense. And so most people think of TSA as the individuals when you go through the airport, right? So there's a lot more to that than just being TSA and the TSA employee that does your screening at the front gate there. So there's a lot of systems in the background that go into making sure that those systems are functional. So
and a lot of assessment, like there's a whole wing that helps government organizations on security assessments and everything, right?
Yes, there is, and believe me, I'm going through some of it right now. So,
what I think the top 300 or whatever active exploited vulnerabilities that the government put out recently, and that CISA is adding to, I think is a really great resource for industry and even my intelligence group, right? Okay, we know of all of these vulnerabilities we see, we know there's only a smaller tranche of them that are actively exploited. If we can start from a basis of known bad. It helps manage it better. So I think we leverage those resources and the information coming out of government constantly.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. The sharing of information, there's thresholds, of course, limitations, but the information I think designated by CISA, I think the government actually did the right thing in this case and enabled a certain institution, if you will, to actually hone this, so that way the source information can go to multiple locations, and then it can be gathered from multiple locations. So you've got your small business to your corporate to NSA to your intelligence groups, things like that. So I see that as a plus, a win to collaborate, collect, and be able to dynamically
Certainly.
produce information that shows the threat vectors, shows how the modeling and how the impact, and then be able to use like a piece of software like you guys have got as a platform, be able to utilize that on an internal measure through Microsoft or whatever the platform is, be able to support your small business, everybody, right? It goes out to everybody. The ability to turn that around, and especially in a couple of hours, I'm assuming that you could put a threat model out on a new system within an hours versus, I mean, what's the technical term? Usually takes two to three people, which is their full-time jobs, 40 to 60 hours or something like that. So, I mean, it's usually something where transposes where it takes a few days to get this to really sync up, and then you've got to tune it. So, you know, there's just things that happen in the real world scenario where this is going to speed it up quite exponentially and cost, you know, far less when we talk about just the process of getting there.
So that's exactly it. You know, I mean, we have technical limitations to our collection grid, so you know, timelines can be extended. But you know, if we've already detected and you know, if we know systems and have signatures in place to detect certain systems, you know, we've already processed that information and can point you to it right away. Yeah. If we don't have the detection, you know, we're looking at kind of 24 to 72 hours to get signatures and collection in place. But still, you know, that can be a pretty quick turnaround for organizations who are working in 30, 60, 90-day patch cycles. Yeah. Right? So we can get them the right information, you know, as quickly as possible, or point them in the right direction. And that's our goal. We're not going to have the answer every time, but we can help kind of prioritize things and point our customers in the right direction.
Yeah, that's true. We're going to go to a break right now, and we'll be right back.
Blockframe technology offers next-generation blockchain-managed trust and security. Unique non-fungible tokens are used to secure software bills of materials to provide data quality and security for every transaction in your supply chain. Deploy advanced peer-to-peer product security, scale zero trust capability to millions of IoT devices, allow vendor tracking and accountability, and rapidly reset from compromise. Unchangeable, time-sequenced blockchain data provides next-generation security using machine learning trust algorithms and audit analytics. Start securing your supply chain today by contacting Blockframe at www.blockframetech.com.
Back to New Cyber Frontier. I'm your host, Tim Montgomery, and I have with us Steve Ginti in analysis at Risk IQ, acquired by Microsoft here last August or so. A few months back. Sounds like intriguing stuff moving forward. Great for the business, I'm assuming, to be able to be a part of whatever Microsoft decides they're going to do with their platforms. I've seen a few companies that got, you know, intertwined and ate up basically, and basically integrated and renamed. And, you know, I'm not sure what your guys' agreement is, but nonetheless,
we will see. We will see. But we're excited for what the future holds. You know, and the scale that they bring in the platform kind of capabilities.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so we'll be figuring out over the next couple of months, but the excitement is, you know, as we've been talking about, being able to bring this capability to a broader audience, I think is really needed nowadays, and you know, and what we're seeing. And so, you know, even more opportunity in the future.
Yeah, that's no doubt. You know, and then we go to cloud. We talked a little bit about cloud there. I just want to, I guess, double down or focus more on the concept of cloud. I know majority of customers and the majority of our small businesses are probably going to pick up in cloud somewhere. And I think that's where initially our industry, as far as IT goes and staffing, we're going to get more dynamic, more fluent with mobility, if you will. And so cloud is going to be a major component where we're not necessarily going to have data everywhere, but data in the cloud and then interface to, which I think in the 80s, it was intentionally meant to be that way, but the construct, the infrastructure, the technology is just, we had it flip-flopped, I think, right? Analog to digital, digital to analog.
Everything that old is new, and everything that's new is old, right?
Yeah. So the concept has always been there, but it's like, how did we make that work? And so new ways of things. And I had a gentleman last interview I had was he was talking about quantum computing. So I mean, the vectors and the idea behind light diodes, and all these different substances that are used as technologies and baselines, the hardware components to play into the use of quantum computing. So I mean, you can only imagine the analysis behind threat vectoring or modeling and those concepts. So you guys, I mean, what's your interest, your future interest in, I guess, cloud computing, and then the concept behind, quantum? Have you kind of entertained the idea anywhere?
We are firmly planted in the in the existing and cloud infrastructure that organizations have.
Oh, sure.
It's probably well beyond my capability to speak to quantum computing at all. So I will defer to experts like your previous panelists on that, and hopefully my mind doesn't explode when we try to have to figure out how to respond to incidents in that environment.
It's new.
I think we have plenty of opportunity in the move to cloud at the moment, and so that's obviously the excitement around joining up with Microsoft.
Even the concept of cloud and the Cloud Computing Alliance was talking about changes in the cloud, its convergence with hardware, and its inability or ability to emulate virtuality. The virtual concept. Especially with VMware and different components or platforms, actually
containers,
the ability to actually isolate, even down to the application itself. I mean, so and I'm assuming that your risk IQ concepts and things of that analysis, when they go through those traditional vectoring and modeling, and just the analysis of risk, that those are all flourish and fluent within. So I'm assuming that as we go along, and you'll see this capability expand into the cloud more and more and more, and these things will.
We're along the journey with our customers from legacy IT environments into a hybrid and maybe fully cloud environment. And as we go, the scanning technology is universal to IP space that is owned by an organization or owned by a cloud provider, where someone spun up different assets. So we use the same technology to deploy signatures, and as new technology comes out, we deploy new signatures, and our analysts dig in to find new ways to detect these things. So it is always evolving. But I think the technology allows us to be flexible, and as organizations move to the cloud, we can use the same technology we've used to scan and fingerprint their existing infrastructure and legacy infrastructure, and start scanning for cloud-based assets and different attack vectors that may that new cloud environment may pose.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's an awesome idea behind the from what you're utilizing, just to be able to use a piece of software effectively like that. I know the initial concept behind threat modeling it takes time, but that most companies and even cybersecurity professionals, that's not something we have, especially when it comes to threats and being able to push out a patch or harden something to be able to stop the attack, basically, right? So I mean, those are the concepts that we're always battling against. How do you make this more efficient? So, and with something that, and I know traditionally there's probably going to be some automations as they play into, and some IA, probably some smart thinking in there in that concept, and things like that. So, so I mean, I guess what are some of the things I guess you want people to know about, because we're running out of time here. So, some of the biggest things in about your piece of software there, or risk IQ in general, threat modeling, anything. I mean, your audience, what do you like them to kind of know and summarize of what we kind of chatted about here today?
I think it's been a great back and forth, a great conversation. So I appreciate it. I think kind of the key takeaways for me and our visibility on risk IQ is obviously, organizations' assets are, that are connected, internet connected assets are expanding. Their footprint is expanding based on business requirements, and based on this transition from traditional perimeter infrastructure into a hybrid or cloud environment. And so kind of, our threat models are changing. Actors are taking notice of this, rapid transformation for organizations, and visibility, is key for responding to incidents. There's always a vulnerability in the wild. There's actors that are looking for holes in your infrastructure. There is certainly big money now in ransomware.
Oh, yeah.
So I think the key takeaway for me is that visibility is key in this regard as you're making this, as organizations are making these moves from legacy infrastructure to the cloud, and they're going to need that visibility, across both cloud and legacy assets for a long time. But even organizations that are that are cloud native and that are starting out in the cloud are still going to have avenues of attack, misconfigurations, devices deployed that are vulnerable, that they manage, or even that their cloud provider manages, that they need awareness for.
Yeah.
So that's the first step, and then being able to take those vulnerabilities or avenues of attack and map them to bad actors who you may be worried about, to prioritize your already taxed vulnerability management or IT admin teams. Is really the thing we hear, right? The vulnerability team wants to know, like, okay, how serious is this? How what's the context around this new thing? How much time do I have, right?
Exactly.
And that's really the key question, where we want to bring this threat actor information and this vulnerability information together for organizations. How do I make better decisions quicker? And if you're, if anything I've said piques your interest today, we have kind of a free community that anybody can register for, community.riskiq.com, that allows you access to some of our data. It could allow you to trial a 30-day trial of our Illuminate platform, which provides a very rough baseline capability of what your footprint looks like. And so we're starting to provide the tools where you could get answers to some of the questions that have been posed in this conversation. So key takeaway: if this is interesting to you, feel free to go check out our community, register for an account. The community, after the 30-day trial, you'll still have access to some of our data and capabilities. So I think it's well worth anyone checking out.
Yeah, if you Google Risk IQ, I think it all comes up for you, right?
That is correct.
Okay, good job. All right, well, that's it for us this round, our session of New Cyber Frontier. And until next time, thank you, Steve, so much for being on and sharing your knowledge and information and talking a little bit about risk and in the cybersecurity world, right?
I really appreciate the time. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. All right. So that's it for our edition. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of New Cyber Frontier. Remember to get involved. Often we think that someone else will handle privacy and security in the virtual world, but you are the only one truly in command of your virtual fate. Join our mailing list so we can keep you informed of breaking news and new releases. If you have an idea, if you have a question that you would like to hear answered, or if you want to get involved with our efforts, reach out to us at newcyberfrontier.com. We also encourage you to visit our sponsors' links, as they are the ones that really make this show possible. I want to thank each of you for supporting the show, and we look forward to seeing you back for the next episode of New Cyber Frontier.